The moment police raid Britain's biggest county lines, drugs gangs, which made £1.2 million a year.
Police! Police, stay where you are! Stay where you are! Chill out, man. Put your hands behind your back.
In the suburbs of Birmingham and Solihull, a criminal network was quietly pulling in staggering profits. 4 drug lines, operated like mini-franchises under one umbrella, were flooding the streets with heroin and crack cocaine. They weren't hiding in the shadows, they were operating in plain sight. Phones ringing non-stop, customers queuing up, and money rolling in. At its peak, this county lines operation was making over £100,000 a month. But while they were running a business, police were building a case. And soon, this well-oiled machine would grind to a halt. Over the course of a 6-month investigation, West Midlands Police tracked every movement, intercepted calls, and eventually tore the operation apart in dramatic dawn raids. The result? 12 gang members jailed for more than 100 years combined. This is the story of Operation Huntarian, the task force that brought them down, and how 4 drug lines working together as a rare coalition tried to dominate the Midlands drug trade. In most county line setups, a single phone number is all that's needed to run a profitable drug line. But this gang took it a step further. They weren't just running one number, they were managing 4. Known as the Rico, Diego, Figo and Potter lines, each operated like its own branch of a larger organisation, with different teams, separate territories and unique customer bases. But instead of clashing over control, they worked together. They shared contacts, drugs, resources and even couriers. It wasn't just unusual, it was strategic. And it paid off massively. The lines were active across East Birmingham and Solihull. Every day, bulk messages were blasted out to hundreds of drug users, offering heroin and crack cocaine with quick delivery. Customers didn't need to know who was behind the line. They just had to call, place their order and wait. On average, these phones received over 1,000 calls a day. At peak times, they were making between £18,000 and £20,000 a week. That's nearly £100,000 a month. Tax-free and entirely illegal. Each line had its own operators and enforcers. The Rico line was run by brothers Adam and Haroon Iqbal, alongside Mohammed Usman. Operating mainly out of Hodge Hill, they kept things moving with clockwork precision, coordinating supply runs, answering calls, and ensuring their customer base stayed loyal. They were frequently found in the same location as the active Rico phone, and during police raids, multiple devices linked to the line were recovered from their homes. Then came the Diego line. At one point, it was being handled by Adam Slater and Tiana Phillips, who were both stopped in Solihull with active Diego phones in their possession. But when the heat turned up, the line was switched to a new network by Yassine Sadiq, a move designed to throw off investigators. It was a classic dealer tactic: change the SIM, ditch the old phone, stay ahead of the game. But it didn't work. Telecommunications teams tracked the activity, and CCTV footage confirmed the link between Sadiq and the line. The Figo line, meanwhile, was controlled by Ilyas Sadiq. He wasn't working alone. Mark Seeley and Amani Adams helped him manage operations, arranging drop-offs and collecting payments. Their coordination was tight, with Seeley's vehicle regularly captured outside shops, known to be top-up points for the line. Drug users would even be offered extra product for topping up credit, a tactic often used to keep the line live and customer loyalty strong. Finally, the Potter line had its own network, led by Anis Mahmoud, Humer ul Rehman, and Levi Mukwita. But Mukwita's role extended further. He was the link between all 4 lines, the middleman. He wasn't just operating his own stretch. He was supplying product to the entire coalition, arranging pickups and ensuring the other lines stayed stocked. He had communication with almost every member of the network, and his phone data told the full story. Together, the four lines formed one of the most lucrative and well-organised county lines networks the West Midlands had seen in years. They weren't just street dealers, they were running a criminal business empire, and for a while it seemed unstoppable. The alarm bells started ringing in late 2022. Reports of increased drug activity, more overdoses and rising street-level violence in East Birmingham and Solihull triggered a deeper look by the newly established County Lines Task Force. What started as scattered intelligence quickly began to form a pattern. 4 distinct phone lines were generating abnormal traffic, thousands of messages, late-night movement, and a surge in users that didn't match typical local supply trends. Operation Huntarian was born out of that pattern. Rather than launch an immediate takedown, investigators opted for patience. They knew the structure was bigger than it first appeared. Each burner phone was tracked, not just the number itself, but where it was switched on, who carried it, and what numbers it connected to. Every courier stop, every drug run, and every top-up was logged. Safe houses were identified through routine footfall and parked vehicles staying beyond reasonable hours. The team placed unmarked cars in high-activity zones, watching properties where strange comings and goings were clocked at all hours. They intercepted messages and traced patterns of communication between gang members. Each bit of intel brought them closer to understanding not just who was involved, but how the whole operation ticked. They discovered the lines were never dormant. Messages came through day and night, advertising fresh deals, arranging drop-offs, or fielding orders. Customers would get offers like 3 for $25 or on now, coded language that made sense only in context but had devastating impact on the streets. The lines had become part of everyday life in some communities. Addicts relying on them like food delivery services, the phones acting as a lifeline to addiction. Detectives began linking the phones to individuals. CCTV footage was matched with known dealers. Vehicle telematics helped place suspects at key addresses. Gradually, the walls began closing in. The groundwork was set, the intelligence locked in. All that was left was the strike, and when it came, it would be fast, loud, and impossible to ignore. May 2023 marked the moment West Midlands Police moved in. After half a year of patient surveillance and intelligence gathering, the green light was given. 17 warrants were executed in a single morning across Birmingham and Solihull, marking the start of one of the force's most significant county lines takedowns to date. Officers hit multiple properties at once. The operation was fast, aggressive, and thoroughly coordinated. Body-worn camera footage later released to the public showed exactly how it unfolded. Battering rams, smashing through front doors, officers flooding into living rooms, suspects pulled from mattresses before they had time to think. In some homes, windows were broken to access rooms faster. In others, suspects were cornered mid-attempt to destroy key evidence. Mobile phones, the backbone of the gang's operation, were grabbed within seconds of entry, preserving the vital digital trail investigators had spent months mapping out.
Police! Police, stay where you are! Stay where you are! Chill out, man. Put your hands behind your back. I've got him. I've got the mail. On the floor!
What they found inside confirmed everything the task force had suspected. Bundles of Class A drugs, concealed cash stacks, burner phones, SIM cards, even handwritten customer lists. Hidden compartments revealed drug stashes. Walls had been drilled into, Drawers had false bottoms. These weren't careless dealers, they were professionals, and they'd prepped for this moment, but not well enough. The arrests began immediately. Adam and Harun Iqbal were detained along with Mohammed Usman, all central to the RICO line. Adam Slater and Tiana Phillips were taken with Diego line phones still live. Mark Seeley's vehicle, used regularly to top up dealer phones, was impounded. At another address, officers found and detained Levi Mukwita, the coalition's key supplier, but there were absentees. One name missing from the morning's haul was Anis Mahmoud, who had vanished weeks earlier. Unknown to officers at the time, he had fled the UK entirely, but his run didn't last. In September, Mahmoud touched down at Birmingham Airport, unaware a warrant was active. He was met on arrival by waiting officers and arrested before he could leave the terminal. The gang's confidence had kept them in motion for months, but in the space of a few hours their empire began to collapse, one front door at a time. Once the arrests were made, the real work began. Every phone, hard drive, and scrap of paper was examined. And what police uncovered told the full story, one transaction at a time. The gang had been careful, but not careful enough. Each county line was tied to a designated phone, and those phones had left a trail. Call records, message logs, and location data mapped out drug runs, pickup points, and meetups with disturbing clarity. Telecom's evidence proved crucial. GPS data placed suspects at known drop sites at the exact times customers were calling in. Texts offering deals, 2-for-1s, and new batch announcements were broadcast to hundreds of numbers in bulk. Classic county lines tactics. CCTV footage further sealed the case. Cameras outside corner shops and residential blocks captured key players topping up phones and exchanging wraps of heroin and crack for cash, or in some cases, for loyalty-based freebies. One clip even showed a known user loading a prepay card for extra drugs, a trick often used to dodge direct cash exchanges. Search teams combed through the raided properties. They found stash spots behind plasterboard, inside floorboards, and even inside washing machines. Officers seized dozens of burner phones and SIM cards, some still warm from use. Notepads with handwritten customer details, tick lists of debts owed, and coded pricing structures were recovered in bulk. Bags of heroin and crack cocaine were found weighed, bagged, and ready to go. Cash was everywhere, bundled in elastic bands, stuffed into shoes, hidden in boiler cupboards. It wasn't just loose change. We're talking tens of thousands, some still bearing residue from the drugs they'd been wrapped around. Each piece of evidence tightened the net, confirming roles, routes, and revenue. The gang's digital footprint had done what even the most covert surveillance couldn't. It told the story in their own words. By the time the case reached Birmingham Crown Court, the outcome felt inevitable. The Crown Prosecution Service presented a mountain of irrefutable evidence. Burner phones brimming with drug orders, handwritten ledgers tracking customer debts, hours of surveillance footage, intercepted messages that left no room for interpretation. The defense had little ground to stand on. All 12 defendants, faced with overwhelming proof, opted to plead guilty to conspiracy to supply Class A drugs. It was a move that spared the court a lengthy trial, but it did nothing to soften the gravity of their crimes. The judge made it clear this wasn't a minor operation or a few bad choices. This was a sophisticated, multi-layered drug trafficking network that had been flooding the streets with heroin and crack cocaine for months. Running 4 distinct lines, Rico, Diego, Figo, and Potter, they took in over 1,000 calls per day and served more than 200 users. The gang operated with structure, discipline, and intent, and now they'd be punished accordingly. Adam Iqbal, regarded as one of the gang's lead organizers, received the heaviest sentence, 12 years and 6 months. His brother Harun Iqbal, who helped oversee the RICO line, was jailed for 6 years and 4 months. Mohammed Usman, a critical link in the same operation, received 10 years and 6 months. Anis Mahmoud, who had fled to Pakistan but was arrested on his return, was handed 12 years and 10 months for his role in the Potter line. Adam Slater, working for the Diego line, was sentenced to 6 years. His co-conspirator Tiana Phillips was given 5. Yazin Sadiq, who had reactivated the Diego line and attempted to cover his tracks by switching networks, received 11 years. Mark Seeley, captured on CCTV topping up the Figo line, was sentenced to 4 years and 8 months. His associates Ilyas Sadiq and Amani Adams received 10 years and 10 months and 8 years respectively. Levi Mukwita, who acted as the coalition's supplier and facilitated drug movements across all 4 lines, was handed a sentence of 10 years and 6 months. Humair ul-Rehman, working alongside Mahmoud in the Potter line, received 6 years. Altogether, the court handed down more than 100 years of prison time. A clear and deliberate message that this level of organised drug crime would not be tolerated. Detective Sergeant Craig Tennant described the case as one of the most complex and coordinated drug investigations West Midlands Police has tackled to date. Months of surveillance, data analysis and operational planning had paid off. What began as whispers in the community turned into a full-scale takedown of a well-connected drug network spanning across Birmingham and Solihull. The gang's influence stretched far beyond the lines they controlled. They were supplying hundreds of users, feeding into a wider ecosystem of crime that included violence, intimidation, and territorial disputes. Their operations had become a fixture in some areas, phones ringing constantly, customers lining up, the flow of Class A drugs never stopping. Behind that steady rhythm was chaos, addiction, and families being torn apart. With more than 100 years of prison time handed out, the justice system sent a clear message. Sophisticated or not, large-scale drug networks will be dismantled, and those responsible will be held to account. But police know the battle isn't over. The county lines model continues to evolve. New numbers, new faces, and new ways to avoid detection. Officers from Operation Huntarian remain active, working with community partners to prevent similar networks from taking root. They continue to rely on public intelligence and local knowledge to spot early signs and disrupt emerging threats. The takedown of the Rico, Diego, Figo, and Potter lines was a major blow to drug supply in the region. But as Tennant put it, the fight continues and the pressure won't ease up. The Rico, Diego, Figo, and Potter lines controlled large swathes of Birmingham and Solihull, each one operating its own territory but feeding into the same criminal machine. The setup was smooth, profitable, and for a while completely under the radar. But once police started closing in, it became clear how fragile their operation really was. Operation Huntarian broke the gang from the inside out. The leadership structure, the supply chains, the communication methods, all exposed. What made them strong was also what made them traceable. Too many lines, too many phones, too many people involved. That level of activity always leaves a trail. This case didn't just lead to arrests, it sent a signal. No matter how carefully a crew thinks they're moving, all it takes is sustained pressure and a bit of patience to bring the whole thing down. The police didn't need to rush. They watched, they waited, and when the time was right, they took everything. For anyone stepping into the same game, the risks are now crystal clear, because the bigger the operation, the harder the fall. And when the dust settles, there's only one thing left: cold cells and long sentences.